The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The J.J. McCarthy era in Minnesota has arrived.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am going to start this with a story. If you have followed me for a long time, you know that a couple years ago, I wrote last year, I wrote a feature for Wide Left on J.J. McCarthy and his path to the NFL. Something I like to do a lot for players. And in it, there's this moment that's sticking out to me tonight, which is in the college football playoff in his second season, 2023 season, against TCU. A lot of you might remember this game from J.J. McCarthy. This might have been the first time a lot of you ever saw J.J. McCarthy if you didn't watch Michigan all year that year. And he threw a really, really nasty pick six to TCU. In fact, he threw two really terrible pick sixes to TCU, and they would end up losing that game. But if you ask J.J. McCarthy about that game, he'll tell you that the lesson that he took from that one was not necessarily about those pick sixes, but rather what happened after them. That Michigan clawed back and made that a game at the end, if you remember. And it taught him a lesson about how much a really bad pick six can blend into the background of a game. How one bad play never has to define your entire night. And boy, did we see that lesson show up in this one. I don't think we need to hold anybody to account for whatever they posted online, whatever they said to people around them, or whatever they were thinking when J.J. McCarthy threw an absolutely horrific pick six to former Vikings cut Nahshon Wright to bring the Bears lead to 17-6 before or coming out of halftime in the third quarter. And it was 17-6 well into the fourth quarter, up to like 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It felt so done. And I know you all felt it. There are very few people out there. I'm sure there are some that just keep faith to the last second, but I'm sure there are very few of you out there that felt like, yeah, we got this. But the lore of this game is already coming out. J.J. McCarthy, or Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell have already talked about a couple of the really fun moments about what they said to each other at halftime or whatever, and how the vibe was always that J.J. McCarthy felt like he had this. He never felt like, oh, woe is us, we're going down. Like we as fans probably did, and I don't hold that against anybody at all, because it felt bad. The Vikings started this game 4 of 5 3-and-outs to start halftime. Their sixth possession, when they had gotten first downs once, it was a singular field goal drive, and it was most of the yardage was from a pass interference. Then at halftime, they get the ball back with 20 seconds, thanks to a timeout that I was kind of skeptical of, because I thought that they would just kneel it. They were on the 30-yard line. They had 20 seconds. It wasn't really enough time, and J.J. McCarthy had been playing poorly. But they found it. They threw one deep to Jalen Nailor. J.J. McCarthy found it. Nailor barely doesn't get out of bounds. They have to use their final timeout and kick a 59-yarder, which is Will Reichard's career high. He nails it. The Vikings would win by 3. That is a very big one, and Will Reichard hitting all 3 of his kicks was huge. A couple of really big performances on special teams. We won't be able to get to every detail of this one, by the way, in a half an hour, but I do want to also shout out Miles Price on special teams, who had a really nice day as a returner. But that moment, you felt it kind of turn around. But then the pick six happened after that and just cuts all that momentum away. You go into halftime, it's 10-6. You feel like, look, it's only a 4-point game. We're in this. We got this, even though we've been outplayed for the entire first half. Why they got outplayed for the entire first half, I'm going to put a pin in. I'll get to that later. But for me, the headline of the game is that J.J. McCarthy settled in. that he found, and that's the thing everybody's talking about. How did he settle in, right? The difference between first quarter McCarthy and fourth quarter McCarthy was totally different. He just kind of had to get into the rhythm of the game. The ways in which McCarthy struggled early were kind of the ones that I expected, right? That pick six is a heat check that so many young quarterbacks throw in their first couple of starts. An exact thing, right? There's a speed out, there's a cornerback jumping it, and in college, you could always zip that thing in there. That corner was never fast enough to jump it, and in the NFL, suddenly that dude's better than you're used to. And you have to have the discipline not to throw that. You have to recalibrate exactly what open is to you, because in the NFL, it's different than what it is in college. But the real key is, after you do that, can you bounce back? Kevin O'Connell said it on the podium after the game. A lot of teams would pack it in after that. That was an absolute haymaker from the Bears. A left hook right to the eye in a game you were already losing. A lot of teams would say, well, not our night. Okay, one of those nights. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. We'll lick our wounds and we'll try to forget it quickly on a short week, right? And I had my 3-segment structure for this show ready to go. I was so ready to be okay, here's what went wrong, offense, defense, and then I was gonna kind of have a cope angle about how this is the growing pains of JJ McCarthy and we should be patient and all that. And it turns out the patience we needed was just for the rest of that quarter, because eventually JJ McCarthy found it. After 2 more 3-and-outs, the Bears had a big, long drive where they just dunked it all the way down to reasonable field goal range. And then they took a holding penalty, and then an incomplete pass, and then a grounding call. All of this led to a 3rd and 30, and it was just enough for the Bears that they could just get a little bit of their yardage back so the field goal could be reasonable again, and then Cairo Santos missed the field goal. Horrible day for him in Chicago. From that moment on, J.J. McCarthy took it over. He cans into a zone run that Jordan Mason gets a decent gain on, and it just kind of keeps on rolling from there. He hits Justin Jefferson on an out with a blitzer coming into his face. And then a couple plays after that, he hits Justin Jefferson in the end zone in a very tight window. He just zips it in there. That's what he does the best. Zip one over the middle into a tight window. That is what he always did in Michigan, and it's a touchdown. A few plays later, after a 3-and-out from the Bears, the Bears punt it back. There was a great return, or I think this one was the blocked punt from Eric Wilson. Again, a lot of big heroes on special teams. Eric Wilson gets in and gets not a full block, but he gets enough of the punt where the punt's really bad. Ball's at the 50. And a few plays later, McCarthy hits Aaron Jones on a stutter and go to the running back. Beautiful throw for a touchdown, for a 30-yard touchdown. And suddenly the Vikings are in the lead. They hit the 2-point conversion after that to Adam Thielen, his only catch of the night. And it's suddenly 20-17 Vikings. And the Bears are falling apart. Caleb Williams is falling apart. And the exclamation point is the zone read rushing touchdown from J.J. McCarthy. It's 3rd and 1. The defensive end, I think it's Daya Odengbo, who had a great game, but he totally does not respect the J.J. McCarthy running threat. He plays it way too far inside, basically cheats it. So the way that you want to play that as a defensive end is you're trying to surf the backside tackle, or the backside blocker. So sometimes you put your hand on that guy and you kind of stay tight to him, and then keep your eyes on the exchange and then try to chase whoever has the ball. But against faster quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, actually the broadcast made a really good point about this for Joey Bosa against Lamar Jackson on Sunday Night Football. Against a faster quarterback, you might want to cheat to the outside a little bit. Say, well, if that quarterback's going to keep, I want to give myself a head start because that guy's fast. Odengbo does not do that at all, and J.J. McCarthy runs right around him, and it's a foot race to the end zone, which he wins, and the Vikings are up 27-17 with 2.5 minutes to go. The rest of the game is a little bit spicy, but mostly a formality. The Bears will score another touchdown, but it ultimately turns out meaningless because of, again, another great special teams moment from Ty Chandler, who catches the ball in the end zone and has the wherewithal to run it out, which you would usually never want to do because you take a kneel down, you get the ball at the 35. You usually would never want to do that. But by running it out, there was 2:02 left on the clock. You chew up that last two seconds, and you take the 2-minute warning away from the Bears. Beautiful stuff. That leads to the Vikings win.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
In the Monday Night Football loss to the Minnesota Vikings, it was the first time Caleb Williams let the Chicago Bears down.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
Certainly a lot of blame to go around. So we'll focus on the quarterback's performance first and then kind of look at everything else that went wrong that certainly didn't make his job easier. And yet we are one Caleb Williams throw differently away from the Bears winning this game and not losing it. Like ultimately that's where most of that's ultimately the quarterback just has such an impact on the game that he stands squarely at the top of a long list of blame around this team. But we'll look at some of the good stuff as well, some things to be encouraged about moving forward. And that's true for Caleb Williams as well. It was certainly not all bad. He started 10 for 10. It was a lot of check downs and taking what the defense gave him. But in this first half, he was in rhythm, locked in, and it felt kind of like that second preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, where it was like, yeah, this is generally what it's supposed to look like from your quarterback. And it felt like everything we were hoping for and expecting in his first game running Ben Johnson's offense. But he never really found that rhythm again in the second half and missed enough throws, just not hitting open guys, like just missed them, that leave me feeling like the quarterback let the team down because the open receivers were there and he found the open receivers. And like for the last, what feels like almost decade of quarterback play in Chicago, so often the problem is like not being able to read the coverage correctly and not finding open receivers and not processing quickly enough where we never even get the opportunity to throw the ball to an open guy. But it feels like so much of this game felt like Ben Johnson gave Caleb Williams enough answers to the test and led the horse to water. And there were just too many times when he couldn't drink. When he's got, I think it was DJ Moore, wide open on that deep left throw right outside the end zone that probably would have been a touchdown and would have been the difference in the game. Or earlier, there's an open slant over the middle field that he just sails on DJ Moore. There were a handful of throws in this game that were not bad decisions, not struggling to find the open receiver, not no one's open on the play, just everything was essentially schemed up the way it was supposed to be. Everything was taught to Caleb Williams the way it was supposed to be. And all Ben Johnson needed him to do on those plays was make the accurate throw. Like that was supposed to be, in theory, the easiest part of the process. And in any one of those individual throws, you can point to, okay, offensive line pressure here or there, or, the defense doing some things to change things up visually here or there. Like you can always, any individual play, you can poke holes in it and find reasons as to why on that throw he missed. But ultimately, in year 2 of Caleb Williams' career as a number 1 overall pick, now in Ben Johnson's offense, like there just can't be excuses anymore. Like he had it's hard to say like a bad game. I mean, yeah, he had a bad game overall. I mean, that throw in the first half to Rome Odunze was beautiful. Like he made some great throws in this game, but overall, like he missed enough throws that he should make and could make up for it with the special plays that he did make in this game. And that's the most difficult part about this. Like it was there for him to make the plays. And so often last season, nothing was there and he found some way to make the plays. Like it was spectacular the way he would create something out of nothing. But like here, they had created the something for him and got nothing on too many of those plays. Like you can miss 1 or 2 throws here or there, but I haven't been able to like rewatch and go back and count, but it was like it felt like 6 or 8. Like that's too many. He finished 21 of 35 for 210 yards and a touchdown. It's not a bad stat line by any means. And it wasn't like some horrendous quarterback play. Like the Bears lost by 3. Like it was not like Caleb Williams was terrible all game and that's why they couldn't get anything going on offense. But I think Caleb Williams was the difference, the biggest difference between winning and losing this game, in spite of everything else that went so wrong for the Chicago Bears in this game. And we'll talk about the long list of the rest of the blame that can absolutely go around. This is not all on Caleb Williams' shoulders, but singularly, the player who had the most control over the outcome of this game was Caleb Williams, and he didn't do his job well enough, independent of everything else going on around him, that ultimately leads to him letting this team down. Now, the glass half full look at that is, in spite of everything else going wrong on this team, and we'll get into specifics, but things that happened on defense, the offensive line, the running game, special teams, like the Bears had a lot of different things go wrong, and still they were 3 points away from beating the Vikings. Like they were close in this game. And that tells you like, hey, maybe they're close to success, that if they can do all these things poorly and still almost beat the Vikings, then they clean up a few of those things they're doing poorly and they should be in a pretty good position. And even from a Caleb Williams perspective, like the glass half full view on him missing these throws is like, he's missing the easy part. Like that's the part that's easiest to clean up. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, the least concerning thing he could have done wrong in this game. Like I don't remember very many, if any, just throws in this game that were bad decisions. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. There was never those like, holy crap, why did he throw it there? What is he thinking on that play? There weren't a lot of plays where, he's truly slow to read a progression. He's just standing in the pocket and takes the sack, right? Like you could see his helmet going quickly, 1 to 2 to 3. And sure, there were times he probably held on to the ball too long. And there were times when he couldn't find an open receiver. And Troy Aikman and Joe Buck pointed out a number of times when, there's an open Rome Odunze or an open receiver somewhere on the play that he just doesn't end up getting the ball to and he checks it down instead. I'm not as worried about that because ultimately he was finding players to get the ball to. He was finding the open receiver on plays. He just couldn't hit him. And like throwing the ball accurately should be the most fixable thing here. You don't have to speed up the processing. You don't have to change how he's reading defenses or progressions. You just got to set the feet and deliver the ball with good mechanics. And easier said than done when Brian Flores is blitzing you and your offensive line is having some problems, et cetera, et cetera. But like also number 1 overall pick, smart offensive play caller with a good game plan who put him in good positions to succeed. And he wasn't able to fully maximize those positions where he was able to succeed, despite everything else bad going on around him. So I am by no means panicking about Caleb Williams. I think everything that was going wrong with him in this game is fixable and improvable and should get better. And ultimately, he did enough good to give you a lot of that faith and confidence, too, that better play is coming. But for the first time, this game felt like he did a little bit more of the letting down than the rest of the team. So this was not all Caleb Williams' fault by any means. And sometimes focusing on him to start makes it feel like, oh, it's all his fault and he's the problem and nothing else is the problem. There were a lot of problems in this game. He was a part of that. But a lot more needs to be cleaned up than just, Caleb's got to hit some of those open throws. Like if I just try and like put together a quick master list, like off the top of my head, the defense really collapsing in the fourth quarter. 3 touchdowns. The Vikings, 21 points in the fourth quarter after holding them to 6 the whole first 3 quarters of the game. Like there was a collapse there where Kevin O'Connell adjusted to Dennis Allen, and Dennis Allen didn't have adjustments to the adjustments. And it felt like they didn't have as much juice or intensity or focus or energy in that fourth quarter. And that feels like coaching is part of that conversation. But also the offensive line struggled massively. Was not nearly as improved as it needed to be. That reflected in another problem, a total lack of a running game. DeAndre Swift averaged just over 3 yards per carry. DJ Moore had under 3 yards per carry. Kyle Monangai never touched the ball. 17 rushes, 53 yards from DeAndre Swift. Not good enough. Then you add in Caleb Williams' missed throws are part of this list. Some of the second half adjustments maybe on offense, they needed to adjust a little bit more. Also, I think one of the big factors in this game is just the defensive injuries eventually kind of caught up with them. Like at first, And we were like, hey, no Jalen Johnson, no Kyler Gordon, no TJ Edwards. We thought this might be trouble. Defense looked great for the first 3 quarters. And it was like, wow, Noah Sewell was making some plays. Nashawn Wright has a massive pick 6. And it's like the backups that they threw in there because of the injuries stepped up and played well for a while. But eventually, it felt like that caught up to them over the course of the game. When you see Noah Sewell finally gets burned in coverage by Aaron Jones late on the touchdown pass that I think was the one that put the Vikings ahead, if I have my touchdown order correct. But one of the late touchdown passes, Noah Sewell's lack of speed and coverage finally bit them, and Kevin O'Connell finally found a way to get that matchup and take advantage of it. And we saw Nashawn Wright give up big catches to Justin Jefferson, and then Nashawn Wright leaves with an injury, and you've got Nick McLeod playing on the outside. He gives up some big catches late in this game, and all of a sudden, like the problems they were able to mask in the first half, Kevin O'Connell unmasked, and some of that was just injuries and eventually that kind of catching up on them. Then we'll throw in special teams, where it's like, okay, does special teams lose the Bears the game? No, but they made life a lot more difficult. Cairo Santos misses a field goal. You lose by 3 and you miss a field goal. That's the difference in the game, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that changes the flow of the game, and you can't just say you make that field goal, you tie, because there'll be a different outcome, but like 3 points there is huge. Or you have a partially blocked punt of Cairo Santos, where it looked to me like it was Elijah Hicks blocking on the left side who allowed pressure up onto his inside, and that guy was the guy who blocked the punt. So like punt, block, swings momentum, gives the Vikings short field, and they're able to build off of that. You had, generally speaking, fairly poor special teams like coverage. The Vikings had some long punt and kickoff returns that weren't like 70-yard touchdowns, but it's just those hidden yards that make J.J. McCarthy's life easier, where the Vikings have like 70 fewer total yards than the Bears, and they run 15 fewer plays than the Bears, and yet they score more points because they had less yards to gain, because they got longer returns, because they had that blocked punt, and because they had that missed field goal. Like, it was all just little things like that. And then, of course, you can throw in the very last kickoff where they needed Cairo Santos to boot it out the back of the end zone. Ben Johnson said they were trying to boot it out the back of the end zone, and to none of our surprises, Cairo Santos' leg was not strong enough to boot it out the back of the end zone. And so it's like all those little things all collectively add up to contribute to the loss, to contribute to, and I didn't even mention the penalties in there. I'm surprised I somehow got through this whole list. That's why it's the danger of going off the top of my head. Penalties. The Bears had 12 penalties for 127 yards in this game. How many false starts did we see in the first half? Again, like taking Caleb Williams from a first down handoff that gets 1 yard, 2nd and 9, then you have a false start and become a 2nd and 14. Like, they were playing from behind the sticks so much with those kinds of self-inflicted penalties. And then you had, hands to the face on Diodengmo on the 2-point conversion that gave him another shot at it. You had defensive pass interference and defensive holding. Like, there were so many penalties across the board that also made life difficult. And it's like, holy crap, it feels like almost everything went wrong for the Chicago Bears in so many ways. And yet, they only lost by 3, and they were in control for most of this game. And so I find simultaneously a big concern by everything that went wrong, and also some silver lining of like so many things went wrong and they were still right there in this game. And so I think you can take an optimistic viewpoint of it and say, generally speaking, they're not going to do all of those things that bad every single week. Like, they're not going to have 12 penalties for 127 yards every single week. They might have penalty problems, and they may have 6 or 8 penalties next week. But like, that's half what we got in this game, right? If you give the Bears half of those penalty yards back, that could be the difference in a game like this, right? Like, the penalties are going to improve. They might not be solved, but like, not all these problems are going to be solved, but a number of them will just naturally improve. Like, Jalen Johnson is going to get healthier. TJ Edwards is going to get healthier. Kyler Gordon is going to get healthier. Like, that kind of thing will naturally improve there. Like, some of these things are just guaranteed to get better. And then you hope that quality coaching from a better coaching staff can help make some of the other things better, can help the offensive line block a little bit better. Because there's a real concern there. That to me You know, I talk about like Caleb maybe deserves the most blame, but the most concerning thing from this game was Drew Dahlman played very poorly and Jonah Jackson played very poorly. I thought Tooney was fine. I thought Darnell Wright was fine. Braxton Jones got the job done, but your highly paid veteran free agent center got whipped in run blocking, which was supposed to be his strength, and the pocket collapsed a lot in pass protection. And Jonah Jackson was not the Pro Bowl Detroit Lions offensive lineman. He looked more like the Los Angeles Rams guard there. Like, it wasn't enough to totally derail the offense, but it was a problem in this game.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
New Orleans Saints safety Julian Blackmon may be out for the rest of the year, and so that means it could be time for rookie Jonas Sanker to take the reins.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast.
The biggest story around the New Orleans Saints today, and that, of course, is the injury to Julian Blackmon, which could end his season. Where the Saints go from here, what the injury means, and who could be next up. We'll dive into all of that on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 for your first bet, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com today to get started. The New Orleans Saints could be without Julian Blackmon for the remainder of the 2025 NFL season. It's unfortunate. Defensive coordinator Braden Staley has wanted Julian Blackmon on his team since Julian Blackmon came into the league 5-6 years ago, and gets him for one game, and now an injury, torn labrum, as has been reported, could potentially end his season. That's very much the expectation at this point. We'll dive into how the injury happened, or rather how the Saints found out about the injury in a little bit. But what I want to focus on right now is what this means for the outcome and how this impacts the outlook of the New Orleans Saints defense. And I will say this, losing Julian Blackmon takes the New Orleans Saints opportunities to get takeaways and to take the football away in 2025 and severely diminishes it. Julian Blackmon is the guy that was going to go out there and get interceptions. He's the guy that was the easy pick to lead the team in interceptions after the retirement of Tyrann Mathieu. Being able to go from Tyrann Mathieu and Will Harris to Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon was a really sweet setup for the New Orleans Saints. And now that sounds like that will no longer be the case for them. The biggest impact is the loss of opportunity to take the football away. So someone else is going to have to step up in that category, whether it's Kool-Aid McKinstry or Isaac Yiadom on the outside at corner, whether it's Alontae Taylor on the inside, whether it's Justin Reed or whoever it is that steps in place of Julian Blackmon. That is going to be the measure by which you're taking a look to say, okay, did the Saints improve, or did the Saints, or rather not improve, but did the Saints find a way to keep the ship afloat over on the defensive side from a takeaway perspective without Julian Blackmon? So it's going to be up to those players to go out there, take the football away in the passing game in order to try to lessen the severity of this loss, which is not officially season ending at the time that I'm recording this, but is very much effectively expected to be season ending. So who steps into the role? Well, it might be time for rookie Jonas Sanker already. Now listen, Jordan Howden has the seniority and he has the NFL experience, right? A little bit more NFL experience. The Saints have kind of leaned that way. You'll notice this past week, guys like Christian Boyd as well as Vernon Broughton were inactive for this game, or for the game up against the Arizona Cardinals. And in exchange for that, they had guys like Jonathan Bullard and Jonah Williams who were active. So the Saints continue to lean on experience over potential here early on in the season. We saw that with position battles in the offseason. We saw that with the quarterback battle as well, even though Spencer Rattler won and earned that opportunity. Tyler Shuck, though, very much ready and waiting in the wings to get his opportunity. And I think he'll eventually get his opportunity during this season, because I expect that the Saints are going to make sure they get a look at both of these guys throughout 2025, unless Spencer Rattler does enough to convince them otherwise, which is very possible. Or rather, the possibility is there. And so for New Orleans, they have consistently leaned on veteran experience. So it would not surprise me to see Jordan Howden get the nod. However, Jordan Howden was questionable going into last week's game or going into Sunday's game, and did not play because of the oblique injury that he's dealing with. So that could potentially have an impact on this conversation as well. Do you go with the guy that's more experienced but has missed time more recently? Or do you go with the guy that's maybe less experienced but has a lot of potential and has a lot of talent? And so you're going to have to make that decision if you're the New Orleans Saints. We'll see which way they go. I feel like because of the versatility, I mean, you listen to Brandon Staley, you listen to Terry Joseph, the passing game coordinator who works with the safeties, you listen to Kellen Moore. Every time that they talk about the safety position, what's the first thing that they highlight? They highlight versatility, the fact that these guys in Julian Blackmon and Justin Reed can cover, but they can also come down and make tackles in the box. You hear other players talk about them as well. And so when I think about that from the player perspective, that's very much what Jonas Sanker was in college at Virginia. He played deep safety. He came down into the box. He played at nickel. He had some outside corner experience, right? Like there's a lot of different things that he's done. So if the Saints are going to lean on versatility over pure coverage ability, then Jonas Sanker probably gets the nod in this situation. So the third round rookie could see not just action, but starting action in just week 2 of the NFL season here as he goes through. I also think that a lot of this season is about seeing what you have in your young players and seeing what you have in your future. You're taking inventory this year. And so getting that inventory and that evaluation on Jonas Sanker this early is not a negative thing. Does it stink to not have, if you're the Saints, to lose some veteran experience at a very important position? Of course, 100% it does. But if you want to take a look at an opportunity that comes from this, here it is. A chance to get a look at a guy that you invested in highly with a top 100 selection in the third round of this year's NFL draft. And now you have the opportunity to potentially get him out on the field and get him active here very early. We'll see which way the Saints go with it. I asked Kellen Moore if they knew already where they want to go. It sounds like they feel like they have a lot of options. And so they'll kind of see what it is that they want to do with their game plan this weekend and then maybe make the decision based off that, I imagine is what's kind of hanging in the air. But I have a sneaking suspicion that the Saints know exactly what it is that they want to do. They're just not going to tell me. And that makes perfect sense. They're not going to tell anybody because they want that to be kind of under wraps. But we'll get a better idea of it as we go on throughout the week. And we'll see kind of where things go as we hear more. Now, this injury was a surprise one because Julian Blackmon did 100% of the snaps on Sunday's game up against the Arizona Cardinals. We asked Kellen Moore about that. He said basically what happened was that Julian Blackmon got home on Sunday night and then realized that what he was feeling wasn't soreness, but might be an injury. Went in Monday morning, got checked out, and that's where they found the shoulder issue, which has been reported as a torn labrum. And so with that, that's kind of the way that it works out. Adrenaline is a really special thing, I guess, in some situations, right? We see this with NFL players sometimes where they don't realize that they're hurt until they get home later on in the night. And then they go, oh, that's not sore. Like that's a problem. And that sounds like that's kind of what happened here for Julian Blackmon. So overall, an unfortunate situation, but an opportunity to potentially get an early look at a promising young rookie.